And so much for democracy, Gavin Newsom. You're going to overturn a ballot measure to do this. Why? Because you want to try to resurrect your gutter bottom polling that shows that you don't have a great chance of being the Democrat nominee.
Right.
You're trying to make yourself relevant again by overturning the will of the people of California.
Well, guys, the fight for our democracy is still raging on. And I know it sounds hyperbolic, but unfortunately, that is just where we are at today. And I think it's our job to remind Americans that it was Donald Trump and the Republicans who started this whole redistricting fight in the first place. Donald Trump called over to Gavin and said, hey, I want you to find me 5 extra seats. Donald Trump knows that his big despicable bill is going to be devastating for most Americans. He knows that he's underwater on nearly every single issue when it comes to his presidency. And to avoid accountability from the voters, they have decided that they want to try to rig these midterms in advance. And now you've got idiots like Charlie Kirk out there crying like a schoolgirl because Gavin Newsom has the gall to fight these people at their own game. He's over on Fox News whining that it's actually the Democrats who are to blame for this whole mess. And so I want to go ahead and show you that interview with Charlie Kirk and Will Cain. But first, we should set the stage here, because Gavin Newsom outlined very clearly what the difference was between California redistricting and Texas's redistricting. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
But this is the difference. This is the difference between what's happening in Texas and what's happening here in California. We didn't receive a phone call from the President of the United States to then quietly go in the back room and start drawing maps and legislatively try to jam them through against the consent of the people. We're doing precisely the opposite. We're working through a very transparent, temporary, and public process. We're putting the maps on the ballot, and we're giving the power to the people. This will be the first redistricting that's ever done that. That's the difference. We tried to raise the standards, and these guys are not playing by any set of rules. So this time requires us to act anew, not just think anew. And so I'm grateful to all of the remarkable leaders that have stepped up this unifying effort here in the state of California. And we'll be asking for the people on November 4th, a special election coinciding with a lot of local municipal elections, to provide a temporary pathway for congressional maps. We will affirm our commitment to the state independent redistricting after the 2030 census, but we're asking the voters for their consent to do midterm redistricting in 2026, 2028, and 2030 for the congressional maps, to respond to what's happening in Texas, to respond what Trump is trying to excite.
So I think it is very important that we point out the differences here, and we need to highlight them to the rest of the American people. What California is doing is markedly different than what Texas is doing. First off, it is going to be a temporary measure until after the 2030 census. Secondly, it is actually going to be a ballot measure that the voters in California can actually vote on, which means they are going through this process in a democratic way, using a democracy to get this done. This is not Texas Republicans who are unilaterally trying to just blow past the voters and find Donald Trump an extra 5 seats. That is not what California has chosen to do. And this actually puts Gavin Newsom at quite a bit more risk that this thing could blow up in his face. And I think it's very, very important that we point that out. Gavin Newsom is taking on a lot of risk here, and he should be rewarded for taking that risk. He is one of the fighters who is standing up against this authoritarian power grab that we are seeing from the likes of Donald Trump and the MAGA Republican Party. Gavin Newsom is trying to counter the direct power grab that the Republicans are trying to engage in. They are trying to rig the midterms in advance, and they are doing it in a democratic way. It is so, so important that we are able to highlight this to the rest of the American people. It's going to be on the ballot. The voters will get to decide. It is a temporary measure. The Independent Redistricting Committee will be reinstated after 2030. Those things are very, very important. And so let's keep those in mind as we watch this interview with Charlie Kirk, this disingenuous fuck who is trying to blame Democrats, trying to make it seem like the Democrats are the ones trying to break our democracy. Let's keep all of those things in mind as we look at this conversation with Charlie Kirk. First off, he is trying to say here that it's actually the voters of California who don't even want this redistricting to happen. Let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
That's right. And just to reiterate your phenomenal open, Proposition 11 was voted on by the peak gerrymandering out of the hands of politicians and into this independent commission. Now, it's far from perfect. Some of the maps in California are a little bit creative, to say the least, a little circuitous. But however, it did have some sort of a spirit that the people of California did not want politics involved in the drawing of their maps. In fact, a recent poll shows that 64% of Californians do not want to see Gavin Newsom do this. But Gavin Newsom needs to dig himself out of a hole. This is what it's all about.
So Charlie Kirk is not wrong saying that the Independent Redistricting Committee was established by the voters of California, and that's how it should be. But he's also trying to get you to believe that it's just Gavin Newsom trying to go around the Independent Redistricting Committee because Gavin Newsom is just on a power trip, trying to break our democracy starting in California. That is what Charlie Kirk would have you believe. What he's leaving out here is that even though that poll said that 64% of people wanted to keep the Independent Redistricting Committee, it wasn't exactly clear, because you can still want to keep the Independent Redistricting Committee, but also want a temporary fix to what the Republicans are doing over in Texas. So I think we do need better polling on this particular issue. I think the question needs to be asked in a way that really addresses the issue at hand. We are seeing an illegal power grab, well, not necessarily illegal, a bad faith power grab going down in Texas, and people of California have the opportunity to fight back against that. So we need to craft polling in a way that actually addresses that issue. Let's go ahead and move on to this clip where Charlie Kirk is trying to say that he's basically going after Gavin Newsom, trying to say that he's a terrible governor. He doesn't want to do anything for the people of California. You know, just the petty personal attacks that you would expect from an idiot like Charlie Kirk.
And it's all about the pursuit of power. This is a guy that will say anything and do anything to be in charge. His entire life has been about the ascension and the accumulation of political power. And you made a really good point in your open. It's not about making sure that they could rebuild Los Angeles, not a matter of being able to deliver results for the people of the Palisades, not to be able to make sure that the schools of California are functioning.
So this is just Charlie Kirk trying to diminish Gavin Newsom, trying to make him out to be some sort of bad guy in the state of California. Of course, California has its problems, but Gavin Newsom has been one of the people trying to cut down that red tape to make sure that the Palisades can get rebuilt. And if you're going to try to go after California as far as their education system goes, you're not going to win that bet, bro. California has some of the best schools in the nation. If you look at the top 10 universities, the University of California has 4, 5, or 6 slots on the top 10 list. To say that education is failing in California is not a rational thing to think. You live in fucking red states that have terrible, terrible education systems that you just can't even hold a candle to somewhere like California. Charlie goes on to continue to try to diminish, to continue to try to bash Gavin Newsom, saying that he's actually overseeing a failed state.
We have to understand that this national fight that Gavin Newsom is trying to pick, by the way, who is he to say, well, Donald Trump missed the deadline? You're the governor of a failed state that has the greatest climate on the planet that is losing population. You have to actively try to get people to leave California. If anyone's leaving California, they're doing so unwillingly. If people are leaving California, that means you have turned it into a smoldering crater of its former self. And Gavin Newsom, he just wants to be the king of the ashes, even though California is an unrecognizable state of its current self.
Such a great point. You were gifted the Sierra Nevadas and the Pacific Ocean,
yes,
the world's 5th largest economy, and you literally drove people out of your state.
Yeah, these assholes continue to come back to this argument because California saw population decline at COVID and a little bit after COVID. But those trends have reversed. California is now experiencing population growth for I think it's the third year in a row. They're just wrong here. California is one of the most attractive states in our union. It is the fourth largest economy in the entirety of the world, which means if you broke California off and ran it as its own country, it would be the fourth largest economy in the world. Charlie Kirk and the Republican states, again, cannot hold a candle to what California has done. They are an economic powerhouse, not only for the world, but for our country. These are the people who are paying in billions of dollars of taxes and taking very little in return. They are a net donor state. They are the state that is bailing out these red states that are so poorly managed. So again, Charlie Kirk is just full of shit here. California is experiencing population growth. It has a good education system. Of course, it has its challenges, but California is one of the best states in this country. It's not even close. And to go ahead and tie everything all up in a nice little bow, Charlie continues to hit on this idea that this is just a political power grab for Gavin Newsom, even though he is following a leader like Donald Trump, who is trying an authoritarian power grab across the whole country right now. But here he is saying that Gavin Newsom is trying to overturn the will of the Californian people.
All they want is political power. They don't care about principles. They don't care about the betterment of D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, New York, Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco. They control all those cities that are disasters and awful forms of how they used to be. So Gavin Newsom, he wants to change the rules in the middle of the game. And also, the Democrats, they want to say, oh, gerrymandering's the worst thing ever. You look at Illinois. Illinois is like the petri dish of American gerrymandering. But Gavin Newsom is a perfect example of somebody that stands for nothing except himself. That is all he cares about is the personal accumulation of political power. And I just want to repeat this. 64% of the people of his extremely liberal state do not want to see him do this. And so much for democracy, Gavin Newsom. You're going to overturn a ballot measure to do this. Why? Because you want to try to resurrect your gutter bottom polling that shows that you don't have a great chance of being the Democrat nominee. Right. You're trying to make yourself relevant again by overturning the will of the people of California.
Charlie Kirk, these people just have no shame. Imagine being Charlie Kirk, going out there on national TV, screaming about democracy and how Gavin Newsom is trying to break that democracy, when you've got your tongue so far up Donald Trump's ass that you probably know what his fucking large intestine tastes like. Imagine being Charlie Kirk. Dude, are you serious? Gavin Newsom is not trying to overturn a ballot measure. He is putting a ballot measure on the ballot in the special election so the people of California can choose whether or not they want to engage in this redistricting fight. It is your guy, buddy, who is trying to just find an extra 5 seats to try to rig these midterms in advance. And I like how he continues to call out these blue cities like there's some sort of dumpster heaps when they are the economic powerhouses of this country. Again, it is the blue states and blue areas that produce most economic activity in this country. It is the blue areas and blue states that are bailing out red states day in and day out. It is Donald Trump and the Republicans who are trying to break our democracy. It is Donald Trump and the Republicans who are trying an authoritarian takeover that is fascist in nature. They are trying to rig these elections before they even happen because Donald Trump knows that the American people are likely to hold him accountable for his very, very shitty governance. That is what they are scared of. And now that you've got a fighter like Gavin Newsom who is fighting back against these people at their very own game, they are running around with their hair on fire, trying to make it out to seem like it's the Democrats who are trying to break our democracy. It's the Democrats who are actually the bad faith actors in this country. Give it a fucking rest, Charlie. You know that that is just not true. These people have no shame. They have no scruples whatsoever. It is they who are after this overt power grab. It is they who will hold on to power at all costs. And it was the Republicans and Donald Trump who started this redistricting fight in the first place. And now that we are responding in kind, they're losing their fucking minds. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something that can push back against this MAGA media machine that just launders all of this authoritarian nonsense for Donald Trump day in and day out. We need to fight back against the Charlie Kirks and the Turning Point USAs of the world. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free right here on YouTube. If you guys want to go a step above and beyond that, you can hit us up over at politiscape.substack.com and subscribe for as little as $5 a month over there. And if you don't want to jump off to a new platform, you can become a member right here on YouTube for as little as $3 a month. And as I will continue to say, guys, fighting back against this right-wing media ecosystem, it has got to be a team effort. So I will see you guys on the next one.